I'm Autumn Lockett,
And this is Mitch Randall.
and you're listening to Good Faith Weekly.
On this episode of Good Faith Weekly, we're going to be catching up with Autumn, see how Easter weekend went for everyone. Also going to be talking a little bit about the importance of Zoom etiquette, because it seems like everybody's just gone crazy talking on the internet these days. And then in our deeper dive, we're going to take a look at an article by Rabbi Jack Moline at ethicsdaily.com, talking about how this pandemic has revealed our enslavement to work. And then finally, we're going to be interviewing a comedian by the name of Paul Williams from Dallas, Texas. So you'll want to stay tuned for that. Autumn, it's good to see you again. How was Easter weekend?
It was rainy, as it usually is in this part of the country. It's either freezing cold or it's raining every Easter. I don't know. If I were Jesus, I maybe would have just held out one more day.
Or maybe one more month going into May.
Would have been, yes. A Cinco de Mayo Easter would have been really lovely, I think.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, it was great. The kids hunted Easter eggs several times inside. They did a couple practice rounds, so they were good and ready when the chocolate was actually inside the eggs. We dyed Easter eggs and tried to do as many of those traditional Easter things as we could while we were still at home. What about you guys?
Well, we had an interesting, it was really fascinating Easter morning, because we got up and I was able to participate in our church's Sunday school class via Zoom. And then I got to attend a couple of services across the country. Not only our service here in Norman, Oklahoma, but also I got to listen to Old Cambridge Baptist Church in Cambridge, Massachusetts. My good friend Cody Sanders is the pastor there. And then also Calvary Baptist Church in Waco, Texas. Mary Alice Birdwhistle is the pastor down there. And then got to teach youth Sunday school to top it all off. So it was a great Sunday morning and celebrating Resurrection Day. And then just got to spend some really quality time with family. It was nice to just kind of be lazy for the day. So it's a good day.
Yeah, I completely agree. Our family participated in the Easter service, but it was pre-recorded. So it was kind of nice to be able to take turns getting dressed up and recording our portions for it, so that when it came time for Sunday morning, we didn't really have to do that. I stayed in sweatpants all day yesterday.
Oh, well, that's perfect. Now, how did you participate? What'd you do?
So our kiddos recited the Lord's Prayer, and then our daughter sort of edited it and spliced it together. So that was one thing that we did. And then they also participated in for Maundy Thursday, they did a foot washing ceremony that was, I'm sure will surprise you, almost a complete calamity on our porch. Three kids washing each other's feet in a giant salad fiesta bowl. It was just chaos. And then my husband and I did a pretty traditional hymn, just acoustically with the guitar unplugged. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, good. Well, it sounds like an unorthodox Easter, but you know what? Easter itself is unorthodox. It's quite the story. So, a good weekend all around. So hey, talked a little bit about services we watched and classes that we participated in. And I know that we've been conducting our business via Zoom, as the rest of the world has during this pandemic. One of the things I thought we could talk about a little bit is Zoom etiquette, because I've had to learn all of this myself. I mean, I've over the last couple of years, we work remotely all across the country with our staff, and I've tried to figure out, how to conduct meetings over the internet and in little boxes. I can't tell you how many times where I've had to turn and cough or sneeze or yell at somebody in another room and forgot to hit mute. So, I mean, do you have any, your top 3 pet peeves when it comes to Zoom meetings?
Oh, gosh. Well, I really, especially during these days of, us all working remotely, I really hate it when people just leave their black avatar box up and they don't actually allow video. Now, listen, if you're not clothed or someone around you is doing something inappropriate,
there are some people it's like, I am okay with.
But for the most part, we're all really seeking that human connection. And so if at all possible, allow your video to be on. Even if you're the only person on there, others will join. I found it's sort of contagious, like yawning. If you'll turn on your video, I work a lot in like software programs, and so there's a bunch of data kind of people, and so I think they're just used to like, let's just get on, and this is very functional, but I think maintaining that human connection is really important.
You mentioned that human connection in Sunday school. My wife and I teach our youth Sunday school class at church on occasion. And yesterday was my turn to teach. And I saw that the youth came on Zoom. It was a good time. And so at the end, we decided to pray. And one of the students suggested that we form a virtual circle and hold hands. And it was like, how in the world are we going to do this? And she said, well, just stick out your hand. And so we stuck our hands out in the box. See? And you're like, holding hands. You're making a circle. It was fantastic.
That's so cool.
You get to virtually hold hands.
Yes. Okay, so another pet peeve I have is when people, I think if there's more than maybe 7 or 8 people on, you should stay muted until it's your turn to talk. I think it gets, even if you don't realize or you don't think there's a lot of background noise, by the time you get 10 background noises amplified, it's just sort of tricky. But then you, of course, always run the risk of starting to talk and not realizing that you're mute, and then you just like, you look like a crazy person. So that's tricky. And I don't know. I think probably my third pet peeve is that people forget that you can see them. So, remember that people can see you. We've all heard some horror stories about unprofessionalism in that element.
Sure. Yeah, I'm surprised how many people feel very comfortable just eating lunch or breakfast on a business call. I mean, lots of people are just sitting there slurping up their cereal or slamming down a sandwich and stuff like that. It's like, all right, and we're trying to concentrate on business here, but I got to sit here and watch you, go after this hoagie that you put together with salad and mustard getting all over your face and in your beard. And
the other thing is lighting. I have so many people who sit with, they want people to be able to see out their window maybe, and that's really kind, but they're not seeing out your window. They're just seeing you looking like a Bond villain, and you're completely backlit.
Well, in some cases, I mean, there's a halo that develops over their head.
Or horns.
Or horns, of course. Hopefully, as these Zoom meetings continue, many of us can get better at them and try to engage in a little bit more etiquette along the way. Welcome back to Good Faith Media, and in this week's Deeper Dive, we're going to take a look at an article written by Rabbi Jack Moline on April the 13th of this week at ethicsdaily.com, entitled, "Your Work Carries Dignity, but You're Not Enslaved to It." And Rabbi Moline, who is the executive director for the Interfaith Alliance in Washington, D.C., has written for us quite extensively at Ethics Daily. And this is just a fascinating article to me, as he kind of unpackages the notion that this pandemic has revealed how much we have been enslaved to work. Some people are calling this the great pause because everything's just on hold. And it is revealing a lot about ourselves, our relationships. But Rabbi Moline talks about how it reveals also our enslavement to our jobs, and that many times people are having even an identity crisis because their identity is so wrapped up in their work, and because they can't be in the office or they can't be traveling all the time, that somehow they have less worth now than they did before. So what do you think about this?
Yeah, I think it's, a really important topic to focus on, especially as we see unemployment numbers just skyrocket, that you aren't what you do. I love the way that Rabbi Moline worked in sort of the Jewish idea of Shabbat, and the idea that it's okay to take a pause. And even though traditionally that's a once a week kind of situation, I think this is sort of a Sabbath for some of us, and a time to rest and to really make the best of this time. And instead of like hovering our finger over waiting for the play to come available, I feel like it's like we're wanting to skip this ad. Well, this isn't an ad. Like this is a course of our life that we're all going to have to approach. So, and it's hard, I think especially as a woman, who grew up in, a Bible Belt sort of place where, the Proverbs 31 woman was what we were supposed to be. I think on an even deeper level, my identity is tied to my work and what I can bring to my family. And, do I ever take a rest? Do I ever take a pause? Or am I always someone who they can rise up and call blessed? And the guilt that comes, even when I just take, 45 minutes on a Sunday to sit down and watch a TV show, I'm like, oh my gosh, I could have been doing this or that or this. And it's hard to sort that out.
It's an incredible point that you're making there, because there's the old adage that if you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of others. And a lot of times we neglect self-care. Mm-hmm. We neglect, making certain that we have enough rest, making certain that we have some kind of outlet, whether that's a physical outlet, taking a walk or going for a run or working out. We need to take care of ourselves, both physically, mentally, as well as spiritually, so that we have energy to take care of others and do our job. Our identities are not all wrapped up in what we do. And I think Rabbi Moline does a really great job in revealing that in his article. At the end of it, he talks about without meaning, let me quote him real quick, without meaningful work and a living wage, including vacation time and support through medical needs, a person is enslaved to maintaining sustenance by the unrelenting sweat of their brow. And it's that latter part of that quote that really spoke to me, that we get enslaved to this. We're addicted to busyness. Mm-hmm. And because anybody I talk to, and I know that the finger's being pointed at myself as well, we always like to talk about how busy we are, and all the responsibilities and tasks we have. And that really is a sad commentary, because we are addicted to that. We're constantly finding meaning if we're trying to maintain that sweat on the brow, as Moline suggests. And if it's not there, we feel guilty that it's not there. And so, we cannot fall prey to this enslavement of labor wrapped up in our identity. Jesus himself was not wrapped up in labor identity. Probably the most profound text addressing that is when Jesus comes back to his hometown and he enters the synagogue, and he's chosen to raise a scroll and make a comment about it. And when he does, the crowd there is perplexed, and what they say is simply, "Isn't this the carpenter?" Mm-hmm. It was like, the carpenter can't say these things. The carpenter can't understand scripture like this. And Jesus had spent most of his adult life as a carpenter, a trade that he learned from Joseph. But he did not let that profession, as respectful as it was, define who he was. He was a person. And he took that philosophy and applied it all throughout his ministry. He did not let people's conditions, whether that was a social condition, whether that was a physical condition or an economic condition, he never let that define a person. The person had value simply because they were a child of God, created in the image of God. No reason less than that. They deserved love and respect because they were a living human being, not because of what they did, not because of how much money they had, not because of how they worshiped or what ethnicity they were. They were simply a human being, and Jesus found value in that. And sometimes it's hard in our modern day society to remember that, and that our value is not wrapped up in our labors or our work.
Yeah. And one point that Jack made in his article too is about, it's not necessarily what you do, but it's how you do it. And it's sort of your mindset toward it, whether it's something that you go to a job and you love your job, or you go to a job because it's a means to an end. Do it with excellence and do your best. And then when you're done, be done. And so I think it's an article I probably need to read a few more times. Another thing that's hard about workaholics who are working from home is there's not a geographic boundary. We'd already been experiencing that some through our smartphones and our laptops that could travel, but now even more than ever, anytime I walk by this closet, I've got two computers staring at me like, come get something done. And it's hard when you also have the job of being a member of your family.
Yeah, somebody gave me a really good piece of advice when I took this current job that I'm in a few years back, because I'd always had an office to go to. I'd get up, get ready, exercise, then get ready, and then go to work. And this job, put me at home. And so I work from home. And the advice that I was given was to make certain, first of all, you get up and you go to work. It's very tempting to just roll out of bed, not shower, work in sweatpants and, a raggedy old shirt and be comfortable. But they said, get up and make certain you go to work. And the opposite is true. Make certain you leave work as well. And it is difficult, especially in a quarantine situation like we're facing now, because we're all working in the same locale. And it is difficult to set aside those boundaries. But you can do it with schedules, and setting those boundaries to say, within the family, hey, at 5 o'clock or 5:30 tonight, all laptops off. We're going to go watch a movie together. We're going to go out to the park together. We're going to play board games together. And try to set those boundaries. They're so, so vitally important, because work is always here in the house during situations like this. But it's so important that we have to take care of ourselves, take care of our families, so that we have the energy to engage in work in a smarter, more efficient way.
Absolutely. And something else getting us through right now is humor.
It is, and I'm so glad you brought that up, because we are about to have a delightful conversation with a comedian from Dallas, Texas. His name is Paul J. Williams, or AKA
Helen Holy.
Helen Holy. Coming up next.
Are you looking for a new way to grow your faith? Nurturing Faith is offering 5 of their best-selling devotionals for only $12 for Good Faith Weekly listeners. Go to nurturingfaith.net to find hope from Carol Bozeman Taylor, John R. Roebuck, Blake McKinney, Michael L. Ruffin, and Merrill J. Davies. The books are all available in the bookstore section of the Nurturing Faith website. And now, back to Mitch and Autumn.
Oh, Autumn, I see you're in the closet again.
I am. You don't know anything about that, huh?
No. It's been a while.
Welcome back to Good Faith Weekly. And this week's guest is Paul Williams, who's an actor, singer, and comedian out of Dallas, Texas. Paul, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
So, Paul, let's just first talk about what everybody's talking about, and that's certainly the pandemic that the entire world is suffering under these days. So the first question is simple. How are you and how are you feeling?
Health-wise, I'm great. I still have a job that allows me to work from home. So I'm grateful for the income. But I'm a little, I'm very much an extrovert. So being at home has been difficult, not having human interaction.
Autumn, can you relate to that?
I can relate to that a lot. I'm also an extrovert. The difference is I live with 4 children and a husband. So
so you're looking for some solitude.
Some adult conversation, which is really why we jump-started this podcast, if we're going to really get down to it.
That's right. Well, Paul, tell us a little bit about your ministry. I mean, saw some clips on YouTube and read some of your stuff at paulwilliams.com. But
no, it's pauljwilliams.com.
We'll edit that out.
Williams.
Yeah, when I first became a performer, and join the union, I couldn't be Paul Williams because he wrote for the Carpenters in the 70s. And so I thought, if it works for John F. Kennedy and Michael J. Fox, I'll just be Paul J. Williams. And so that is very much my thing, is Paul Williams wrote for the Carpenters. Paul J. Williams is a comic.
I love it. I love it.
So yes, PaulJWilliams.com is my website. I come from a very humorous family, but did the thing where I went to Baylor and got a business degree and thought I was going to be the big businessman. Yeah. And it wasn't meant to be. And I really feel like God led me into this new environment of wanting to be a performer, whether it be a singer, an actor. Comedy was not really on my radar. It just kind of happened. And it has been a godsend, literally, that I find out that this is what my gift is.
And you got some great characters. So you don't have to go into character, but just tell us a little bit about some of the characters that that are in your act.
I was in a 3-man comedy troupe for 6 years called Less Miserable, which was a combination of character work, improv, and sketch stuff. And so my comedy partner and I both came up with different characters. My 2 most familiar characters were a female white trash realtor with a big beehive and those long brown cigarettes, Moors, and she talked like this because she's been smoking since she was 4.
Well, yeah, of course.
Not a religious bent to her at all. It was more a commentary on Texas real estate, which is, especially women in Texas real estate, which is somewhat of a stereotype that I just kind of ran with. Yeah. And so a lot of my friends still like me to do that. It hurts my voice, but it's very much improvised.
Right.
My character that's become my moneymaker and my identity was loosely inspired by Dana Carvey's character, Church Lady, back in the late 80s.
Oh, yeah. Boy, I remember that.
Oh, yeah.
Then I took it and just, ran with it. She's very much a Southern Baptist. Her name is Sister Helen Holy. And because I put in front of it, people think she's a nun. Well, people who didn't grow up in an evangelical church don't realize that Sister is a big part of our environment, right?
Almost as big as the green bean casserole.
Oh, yes. Or a green pea salad is my go-to.
Oh, yeah.
But, it started out pretty, just kind of limited. But I've been blessed with incredible improv skills. And so over the years, as I've developed this character, it has turned into a satire on some of our friends in a very conservative evangelical life who have very veiled racism, very veiled homophobia that sometimes comes out really blatantly. And so I take that and turn it on its head. And so Sister Helen always says in her act, now listen, I'm a Baptist, and as such, I'm better than the rest of you people. And so it is my duty to now point out all the different ways in which I'm better than you. So if when you leave here, you have not been offended, you let me know, because I will have missed something. And from that point on, Helen just literally rags on everybody. I have a comeback for every religion. I have a comeback for every ethnic difference, and then I do this entire farce on white evangelicalism. Right. So I truly leave no stone unturned.
Yeah. Paul, you're hitting on something so important right now, and that is the importance of the church being able to not only laugh at itself, but also be self-critical, looking at it and say, hey, these are our shortcomings, let's laugh at it, but laugh in a way that exposes the moronic portion of ourselves, I guess.
Absolutely.
So for transformation. So how did you, I mean, how has that been received overall as you have refined your act and people, hear more and more about these characters you're developing?
It's very much been a process, but I've been able to, this character is so much fun that even for me, when I watch video of it, I'm like, she's funny. Forget me, and I think because Helen leaves no stone unturned, then it really is received well by every faith environment, every ethnic environment, because I hope to make it clear that what I'm doing is this satire of that kind of stuff. I was very lucky to have done recently. Sister Helen spoke to the women's retreat at Wilshire Baptist here in Dallas.
Oh, nice.
And it was hilarious, and so there's so much about Helen that is based in the Baptist church, certain things only Baptist people are going to get. So if I make some reference about WMU, you can tell who the Baptists are in the audience.
That's right.
Oh, yeah. I love that Helen is like an equal opportunity offender.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's really... So is there some catharsis in this for you? I know you mentioned that you have sort of migrated to the Methodist Church. Tell us about that. Back then.
My faith journey has been really almost 360. I've gone from being Bobby Baptist as a kid to going to Baylor to realizing my sexual orientation while I was at Baylor, coming out of the closet in Waco, Texas in the early 80s, which was,
oh, wow.
And then completely leaving the Baptist church and discovering other religions, and then completely forsaking all of this because I got tired of having to justify who I am as a Christian. And so I thought, well, screw it, I'll walk away from it. Then to coming back to a new understanding of who my personal relationship is with, and that by limiting who God has always been based on someone else's description, I'm putting God in a box, and that is not only wrong, it's impossible. So, my faith journey is, I don't belong to a particular church. I have been a singer in a Methodist church for a long time. When I lived in New York City, I sang in Episcopal churches. I love classical high church music. But wherever I go, it is the music that draws me in, because that's how I experience the divine.
Yeah. Paul, now that you mentioned it, one of the things that we are trying to advocate for here at Good Faith Media is the full inclusion of our LGBTQ community in places of worship, not only the church, but in other places as well. Do you think institutions of faith are redeemable when it comes to this? Because it seems like the church and places of faith have done such a terrible job of ostracizing and marginalizing our LGBT community that is that bridge too far to cross right now?
I want to hope that it's not. And I can only speak for myself in that I believe that the strides that have been made, I'm appreciating the strides that are being made, especially within the faith I was raised. I do think there are a lot of people who have suffered such abuse at the hands of the church that there may never be a reconciliation. And I seek to find the positive in that, which is that those people who suffered under the church will somehow find a renewed spirituality that is not limited by the bonds that they were taught as a child. So whether or not they find their way back to an organized church, or if they have been opened up to a new experience with the God of their understanding, either way would be a blessing.
Yeah, good. That's a good word. And thanks for sharing that. Let's shift gears a little bit and talk about what's going on in the world today. There's certainly a heaviness all over the globe with COVID-19 continuing to spread and hotspots beginning to erupt, not only in New York City and other places like that, but even in some more southern states as well. But what we've been doing here at Good Faith Media is talking about the importance of good mental and spiritual health, and comedy is a big part of that. Why is it so important, even in the midst of very difficult, tenuous situations? Why is it so important for us to still be able to laugh?
Yeah, I have several thoughts on that. Number one, it is a scientific fact that laughter releases endorphins that are healing. So that right there is important. Secondly, I think the old time equation for comedy is tragedy plus time. The question is, how much time are you going to wait? A lot of comics, they'll say something and people go, too soon.
Right.
Who's to decide if it's too soon? I think if we don't hang on to our sense of humor in this, we will suffer far more than if we do keep a sense of humor. Have I found particular senses of humor in this? Absolutely. In fact, I write a weekly column as Sister Helen.
What?
Yes.
You've been holding out on us. How do we get a hold of it?
How do we get a hold of this, Paul? Come on. Give us
It is carried on the web by He Said Magazine, which is hesaidmag.com,
okay.
Which is principally a gay, this is what's going on in the world type of thing. But it has a following thanks to Helen's column. But I also post Helen's column each week onto my Facebook pages as well. But anyway, it is called the 701 Club because she's just a little better than that other guy. And I take current event news stories, 3 a week, and then offer Helen's perspective on it. And when the news came out that one of the signs of possible infection is a loss of smell, Sister Helen's comment was, I'm so glad that that is a sign so that if I can't smell anything, I might be concerned. And let me just tell you, brothers and sisters, I am a very gassy person, and I can tell you that my health is very good right now. I'm finding humor in it,
Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
So
well,
I think it's up to everybody. Well, let me say this also. Last Saturday night, one of the vacation companies I work for as Helen hosted a live broadcast of Sister Helen on Facebook Live. It posted on Facebook. And I did an hour. It was the first time I performed without a live audience. So I can't hear what people are reacting to, but I'm getting solid comments constantly. We had at one time over 500 people watching at one time. And the response I got from so many people was, thank you. We need this. I needed to laugh. And that brought me great satisfaction to know that God's given me this gift. Here's what I can do to help.
Yeah. Well, and how do you feel about, there's so much rhetoric right now around, especially in the education space, about what matters. People are cutting the arts programs, they're cutting music, they're cutting theater and all of these things that are our lifelines right now in a crisis. So along with our essential workers, our frontline defense folks, people who are, working in grocery stores who are going to return to working, minimum wage jobs. I'm really hoping that out of this, we're going to have just an emboldened passion to support the arts. So as an artist, how do you see this thing playing out? What can we do?
I am so impassioned for my friends who make their living as an artist, no matter what their medium. I have always had a law firm job that I have had that I'm able to do. In fact, I feel like I've been blessed with both worlds. I make part of my living performing and part of my living with a law firm, but I'm not strictly making my living as an artist. And I feel for my friends who are in that position. What is this going to do to our passion for what we do? Will it make it stronger? Will we hang on to it, depending on how long we're unable to do this? I really believe that once we are able to get back to life, whatever that is, because I don't think normal is going to be normal anymore.
I agree.
That this repression that all artists have felt in isolation will bloom and explode into all kinds of ways that the general public will be amazed. That is my hope. Do I know? I have no idea.
Yeah.
Well, I certainly think you're absolutely correct, because what we're seeing across social media is this longing for the arts, whether it is a comedy routine that you put up online or Elton John doing a concert.
Right.
All these artists who are stepping up to provide a little bit of escape and solace to people who are really struggling. We were talking to Scott Stearman and Tiffany Hinkle, who are at Metro Baptist Church in New York City this week. And they were talking about all their Broadway talent who find themselves out of work right now and trying to figure out what the next step for them is going to be and how long this is going to last. And so, what's amazing to me is that our artists, especially, who are hurting like everybody else, they're the ones who are also stepping up to try to help people figure out this new normal that we're in and help us cope through it, give us some laughter, give us some inspiration to get through these dark days.
What I've really loved is I follow several Broadway people on Instagram, and their Instagram feeds have been so entertaining. And while some of them, they are hurting and scared, the way they are getting through it by being fun on their Instagram page, or sometimes being really honest. It brings us all together. Mm-hmm. I have a woman comedian friend who does a daily thing on her Instagram about her and her partner who had recently gotten together before all this isolation started. So now they're forced to learn to live with each other in the midst of all this. She does a daily 60-second bit on Instagram about the problems they're having. It is so brilliant and so well done. And the last line of every day's episode is, "We're not going to make it." It is, and it's real. It's honest. It is hilarious.
Right.
I live for it every day to watch and see what she's going to say. That's the kind of thing where we're living in the present and making light and sharing it with others. That's important.
Absolutely.
Well, Paul, it has been an absolute joy, but we have one last question that we ask each and every one of our guests at Good Faith Weekly, and Autumn always poses it. So Autumn, ask away.
Yeah, so at Good Faith Media, our motto is there's more to tell. So what is your more to tell?
In the sense of what more do I have that I want to say?
Yes.
I think this story is never ending. And I think that every day brings a new opportunity to, as I've once heard before in John Bacchino's song, no matter what stone life may sling, we can moan or we can sing. And I love that each day gives me an opportunity to make that choice. And the more to tell for me is that I will do everything I can to keep laughter, light, and fun going and going and going.
Well, Paul, thank you so much for joining us at Good Faith Weekly. I want to encourage our audience to go to pauljwilliams.com to find out the latest about Paul and Helen Holy and all the characters.
Yeah. And next time, I think we might need to invite Helen to come too.
You know, I'm sure I could she'll go anywhere a ministry is called.
I love it. So, also, next time we're in Dallas, we may have to have Helen show up at one of our events. That would be fantastic.
And let me just plug this too, that the entire live broadcast that we did last weekend is now on YouTube. So you can search Helen Holy, and it's with Vacaya, Vacaya, which is the travel company I work with. So you can either search Helen Holy or Vacaya, and you can watch the whole hour-long broadcast.
Wonderful. Thanks so much.
Paul, thank you so much. I want to thank everybody for tuning in to Good Faith Weekly. It's been another great week. We're wishing you health and good